What's going on, everybody? This is Chris DeBoard, and I want to welcome you guys to the Dirt Drop Podcast for everything grassroots drifting related and all the fun stuff to be able to learn more about the great sport that is drifting. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors before we jump in and introduce our guests. I want to thank Toolworks, which without that business, this would not exist, and 90% of my life would be nothing. So thank you very much for continuing to support everything I do. Want to give a shout out to Stage Wheels out of Richmond, Virginia. Bill over at Stage has been a huge supporter of my drifting program for the past couple of years. They offer some amazing wheels at some fantastic prices. Make sure to check them out at stagewheels.com. Also want to shout out Zeknova US. The Zeknova tire brand has been in the US for the past couple of years. Shout out to Luis Lands out of Florida for supporting and having a wonderful tire program. Fantastic tire for drifting and other sports of motor. Being able to have this is a wonderful thing in our program. So again, shout out to Zeknova US. You can be able to find their products at zeknovaus.com for pricing, and you can be able to order through Toolworks if you are on the East Coast. Now, my guest today is someone who I've been able to become better friends with over the past couple of years, who I've known for the better part of a decade. A incredible driver. You're talking about Formula Drift 2014 Pro 2 Championship winner, as well as Rookie of the Year in the same year, piloting the Siki RX-8. He has done every stage of Drift Appalachia in 2024 and is also an instructor and driver at Drift Nirvana at Summit Point Motorsports Park in West Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Dan Savage. What's up, buddy? Hey!
Oh, shit, that's me. Hey, thanks for having me. Number one guest. Number one
guest, yes, pilot program.
Stoneback won Rookie of the Year in 14 for Pro.
For Pro, not Pro 2, though.
Yeah, since I won the championship for the first every year, I won it all technically. But
yeah,
you
got your cake and you eat it too, right?
I got it. We shared. I didn't know how they did awards there, and there was a plaque for like highest winning percentage and highest qualifying percentage, and I think we tied for highest winning percentage.
Head-to-head yes.
Wins. So we share that, and I like tried to give it back to him so he could have it for a couple years, and he's like, "I got it."
So it's like shared custody of divorced parents. Like,
I thought it was going
to be the trophy for 1 year, and yeah. Yeah, every January 1st, we go and meet up in Philadelphia or in Virginia, and we just pass the plaque.
I have tried.
That's fair. Well, hey, it's the thought that counts. But Dan, thank you so much for being here. Really am excited to be able to kick this off. But I know so much about you. Can you kind of give the crash course of who is Dan Savage to these viewers?
Well, I don't know if you can read it now, but it says girl dad right on there. More dad focused nowadays, but drifting is still like the biggest passion of mine. It's, if I do have spare time, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to improve the car, trying to get it to the next event, whatever that means. Some years are easier, some years are harder, but Dan, the pro driver, it's not really a thing anymore, but Dan, the coach, or Dan, the mentor, is definitely still. I've shifted gears into that. It's maybe easier. It's less time investment if I can just give opinion or feedback on someone's driving. But Dad Dan and Drifter Dan,
they're all one and the same. They can be the ones. They can be the same person. It's okay. You could be, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Dan.
Yep.
So, like I said, we've been talking about your Formula Drift stuff back in 2014, but that wasn't where drifting started for you. How long exactly have you been drifting, and what did you start out drifting? I know. It's a big question.
I would say about 2005, because 2005 I started at my current job at CarMax. I'm just a technician, used car technician. And I remember drifting the U-turn on a turn in Mexico, around that area in Virginia.
Mexico, Virginia.
But it was like all my friends had 240s or S13s, and they would put on a new adjustable control arm, but not adjust it. And I'd be like, "You're not doing anything. Like, now your alignment's bad." "Yeah, but I put these on because everyone has them." And I'm like, "But you have to like align it." So I would align it and be like, "Well, hey, you owe me the first test drive," or something like that. So I got to like test drive friends' cars to realize I know the mechanical side behind it. And that gave me an advantage when I hopped in and squeezed in between their seat and was like, "Oh, I can't fit, but I'm going to make this work because I understand what I did, or why you put toe in the back, or why you don't want your wheels tilting for camber." So it was
so you're kind of learning on homies' cars as like, oh, well, this is why this works, and this is why this could be like that.
Yeah, from high school, I was already doing auto tech. So I already had the nuts and bolts side of what stuff did. I just didn't have, I would say, the job to support me having that play money to do it. Like I drove Saturns, like Rich Whiteman, Saturn guy. What's up? Someone else has Saturns too, and I heard it on some podcast.
Well, yeah, that Saturn Sky, I think, was the Red Bull car for Reese after the GTO.
He had a Solstice. Reese had a Solstice. Turk and Angerman both drove for Gardella in Solstices, but that's not the plastic panel that Saturns were that I knew. Front wheel drive.
No, the days of like the SC2 and what's that, the L200 or something like that.
SL1. I had an SL1 that was
SL1.
Yeah, and I had an SL2 with the nitrous kit, which is really funny. I was like, oh, I can be the GSR Integra. What's up? Because
The bragging rights that you could have back then.
Made no sense. Yeah, we're talking 2002.
So what was your first drift car though that you owned that you really kind of learned drifting as a sport?
A Miata.
Beautiful NA Miata. You said it, not me.
Reference the picture. This is at Summit Point in about 2007. I've got a skew of pictures over here that I'm going to be pulling up. So
you have slides.
I have slides. It's 2025. It's like we're 2 days in. I wasn't ready, so I don't have Chris's backdrop, but I'm working on mine's mobile. I think we figured this picture was from about 2007, and this is on the skid pad at Summit Point.
But that's not a regular NA Miata 1.6. What did you have done to that when you were first starting out in 2007?
Didn't want to show up to a racetrack without a turbo. So, I actually ran into Yoshi Jeffrey.
Shout out Slideways.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Somewhere in Reston probably. And he was like, oh, you should come to my drift event. I went to this drift event. And I was like, oh shit, this is drifting. What do I do?
So that would have been at Old Dominion, right? At Old Dominion Raceway?
But I've been going to Old Dominion since 90. Like my stepdad's been driving there since like 85. So I've been going there since I was almost in diapers. I have pictures of me in a diaper at Summer Duck Dragway, if you know about that track.
I do know about Summer Duck, yeah. So for some of the viewers that don't know the tracks we're talking about, Old Dominion Raceway was an asphalt bank circle track in Dumfries, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Outskirts of Manassas.
And they had an eighth or quarter mile dragway.
It was eighth.
It was an 8th mile track. And then they also had a go-kart track as well off, but there was a paved short course inside the infield of the banked oval. And Yoshi Jeffrey, shout out to Slideways. Yoshi's events actually where I started driving back in 2007 in my black S14 on Megan's with a welded diff. Driving.
We were probably there together then, though.
We probably were. A couple of guys with blue IS3 was there back when Yoshi
Max.
had Max, and then what was it? Clayton Ritchie and Clayton Ashby, obviously some good OGs in the Virginia community. But anyway, so that track unfortunately is no longer around. It is not be confused with Dominion Raceway in Thornburg. That's a oval track, but also an insane road course. If you're ever able to drift it, I know Drift Week they did an event there when they were on the East Coast. US Drift has done some stuff there. AMA has done some stuff. Have you driven? You've driven Dominion Raceway, haven't you?
I was the first person to turn a lap there.
I was about to say, yeah. When was this? 16?
15 or 16, I think.
Yeah.
It was before the US Drift shootout there. And for some reason, I couldn't go to the shootout. Or maybe I did judge that one. I did judge that one.
You did judge that one. I was waiting for you to remember that.
Well, there's a year I didn't. And that's when I met like the Drift HQ guys. And it was just like, yo, who are these guys in these green cars? Like, they came out of nowhere. Drifting's crazy. Like, we'll get into it, but like, it's insane the history that like I wasn't expecting to do on. It feels like a Sunday night, but it's Thursday night because of this New Year week and the past 2 days. Yeah. Anyways, drifting. We're getting off like where we started as a Miata drifter. We're getting into Pro-Am like already. That's not okay.
Well, no. We were talking about the progression of tracks and how we started at one thing and unfortunately some stuff that we learned on is no longer available, but stuff is now in its place. Dominion Raceway wasn't available when Old Dominion was a track. So to be able to see the progression of just motorsports here on our little bubble that is the Mid-Atlantic circuit is quite wild. Even Summit Point has gone through some progressions that we've only known of.
Stuff there.
Yeah, the secret stuff that we can't talk about that the black dot on Google Maps won't
It's
let
not
you
blacked
see, you
out
know?
anymore.
Is it?
It's there.
I haven't been Googling enough. My browser history has other things in it. But yeah, so talking
Other blacked
about
out stuff.
other blacked out stuff, yes. So yeah, talking about, the Miata was really awesome. So you didn't have the Miata long, a couple of years. You then graduated into, I believe it was an S.
Yeah, I never thought that the competitive side of drifting would be what I wanted to do, but going to Old Dominion, realizing what it took to do that, I could do the infield great, but the bank was a little scary with the bumps and no one like back in your steering angle was like a wedding ring, like washer on your tie rod. That's all you could. That's all
The
you did.
spacer,
Like,
baby.
no one even like cut knuckles back then. It probably wasn't until 2009 that MA started doing like the Awesome Trons on S chassis. So the Miata was like, oh cool, I don't have an S chassis. All my friends had S chassis. They would get when the lights turned off, you would be like, oh, they're all the same. Like none of them like stood out to what I thought I was going to do. So I was like, I'm going to have a Miata. But through that, I wanted to go to better events, and the better events were US Drift. So the better events meaning I needed to go through tech. I needed to get a roll cage. I needed to have roll bar padding. I needed to have a freaking fire suit, like anything that was necessary. So they drove VIR. They drove the fastest tracks at Summit Point. So Summit Maine at Hyperfest. That was the only time you could drive the fast track at Summit Point. So that was like, okay, I need to focus on whatever it takes to get to that level. Then I realized, oh, I'm keeping up. I went through 2 or 3 engines just trying to like stay up with a stock SR. And
Oh my goodness.
and that
So,
kind of
like,
sucked because it didn't even make sense that I could drift anything, but then I couldn't make up on those fast courses because my wheelbase was so short.
on the power is, I mean, at that point it was what, 2011, 2010. The progression of what was available to an SR drifter at that time, even if you had an unlimited budget, Mazworks wasn't pumping out billet blocks, Drift Motion wasn't doing all these awesome, really hybrid turbos. 350 wheel
tires.
horsepower back. Yeah, oh yeah,
Tires,
tire technology.
Yeah. This could be like several issue, like of a series of events. But for me, I realized that after probably, I think 2 years of drifting this car, I put like nice parts on it. I didn't wreck it like a bunch of times.
We're talking about the 240, right? The S13.
Oh, I'm talking about the Miata still.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. No, yeah. Let's go back.
I was like, in the competitive phase, I needed to get up to a 240. I borrowed my friend's 240, which is actually Bellamo's current car. And I got, the S14, his brown one. Oh and I got I finally finished with US Drift. I finished 4th place overall, first day driving the car at their shootout. And I got my first license in 2008 for the 2009 series. And I was like, oh, geez, I have to do this now. Like, I don't know what it means, but I have like a Formula D license. What the heck do I do with it? And like,
what did you do with it?
I hung out with Nate Braz for a year. I stopped driving. That was right when like Nopi was like winding down. That was right when people were going all over with XDC. That was their first year, was 2009. Yep. And he was like, hey, if you can just come with me, I'll pay for everything. And I was like, sure. Like, I was in the perfect timing to do that. So traveling with him, I was like, okay, I need to copy his homework and do an SR car, do a cage. And oh, guess what? He had one at his house. So I ended up buying a car from him that was James Hamilton's.
Shout out James.
DJ Jazzy James Hamilton.
Not to be confused with Nate Hamilton,
Not. We could get into him later because that was what, 2011?
2012, right around there.
Yeah, that was XTC Jersey. Wow.
Yep. Only 12, 13 years ago at this point. No big deal.
So long. No, that's more than that.
Well, it's 2025.
Okay.
You're right.
Where are we
but
going?
anyways, okay, so we see what was going on with obviously Nopi. Nate and you had a great relationship. What really pushed that transition into getting the infamous Truck 40 that it would eventually become? What made that kind of
friends?
So you got scumbagged?
having just a regular 240 with an SR was cool, but then it goes back to like, how do you be individual in what you are but stand out? And a friend found the Truck 40 in Front Royal, Virginia for $1,000. It was, I could probably find a picture for you. It was just gray primered, and it turns out the dude used to build Eleanors in
Orlando, like right when Gone in 60 Seconds came out. So he was a body
Like he
guy.
just had a replica business, like he just was cranking
He
them
worked
out?
at a shop that did the
Oh,
Eleanors, the
okay.
Mustangs. And that turned into like, I had a 240 and he knew the guys from Team Orange when they came over in like 06, 07 or something. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
they did
that's
like
crazy.
D1 versus USA at
Yeah,
Irwindale and stuff like that.
Somehow he said he had talked to them. And I don't know how, because he was just some guy from, he'll probably listen to watch this production and be like, I'll text you. But he was inspired by them. So I had a hatch. It's the only time I had a hatch because hatches are ugly. And it turned out to be the best one because it had a kooky front. The way he had cut like the B pillar to like put a back glass in, it had an S10 rear glass. It needed like shark stuff. Like I bought an R30 front end from Kylie, and it just didn't even like. It was too bubbly on the front. Like that wasn't worth the shape that I thought I was going to go after.
Wasn't it like a black sheet metal front end that you hobbled it together for like a week, and you're like, this doesn't look good?
I did put a picture out, and then I think it was just so I could sell the parts. But you know how that goes. Like, I'm gonna show people what I got, and then someone's gonna hit you up for it. But just getting to the truck 40, it was just an accident. I ended up, of course, running out of money, needing to sell parts, and I think I won a turbo from US Drift doing something, but it didn't fit onto my manifold, so I just was trying to get rid of it, and then ended up getting an offer to trade for another set of parts for some guy that worked at JE Import Performance. So that's when I walked in and was like, LS swap kits. What should I do here? And they're like, we're going around the truck 40. I had the truck 40 the entire time. And then John, who actually runs Committed Service Brand, he was like, hey, you should drive this car for us. So I started driving an LS car, even though I was building the truck 40 with my spare money that I didn't have spare money for. So it'd be like a pause because I drove their car for a year. And then I was like, I gave them a list of like all the crap that needed to be better. And that's when we turned like the truck 40 into like, it broke the internet in what, 2012?
2012 was really when
12
it came
and 13.
out. Yeah, that blue and orange with the orange wheel, and then the blue, and then it was really especially I believe you took it to Katie's Cars and Coffee like maybe once or twice.
My brother like worked across the street at the gas station, so we could like bring it there the night before, put it in the bay, and then just drive straight out. Literally like one intersection away.
That Exxon right there on the corner.
Yep.
I know what you're talking about, man. Shout out to Graham Savage.
Yeah.
Well, he was your spotter, mechanic, all sorts of. He was pretty much jack of all trades over on your FT team, right?
He would be more. He was the jack of all trades. I wouldn't move out of the staging area unless he like did a walk around from my driver's side. He would touch every latchable thing, and then he would hit the hood or he hit the roof to let me know I was clear to drive, because so many people were getting busted for like not having hood pins or not having doors latched and stuff like that. Like all that stuff matters at a judge sport when people are reading the rule book to get any inch necessary for the win. So it's like Graham hasn't been around me if I've gone to like an event that mattered, kind of thing. Because he's
really
my brother.
Cool to have that. Well, yeah. I mean, having a good brother, but also being able to have someone who supports your sport and still you trust and that kind of thing. And you were latching hoods down before Chelsea Nova made it look cool, right?
Well,
just like this.
It is literally insane. I've probably known Chelsea since 2006 also, so I could throw more names into this hat.
No, yeah, I mean, and that's the whole point of this, being able to say, everybody has to start from somewhere. You didn't just jump into an LS car, win a bunch of carbon fiber trophies, and, now be up where you're at, right? I mean, that's not how it
wasn't an accident. Like,
people have spent more money, but it's like the time that you spend achieving that goal is what matters. Like, of course, someone can just write a check to like get to that next step, but I'd give more credit to somebody that's earned that next step instead of just having it paid for. If you can do that, do it. But bro to bro, like, come on, you didn't earn it.
Well, I mean, the sport's we're going to our 20th year of Formula Drift. Drifting's been in America for almost 3 decades at this point in the streets and everything like that. Drifting in Japan, almost 5 decades. The biggest thing, though, you did touch on being able to see, back into the past of things that, you started with. What's like one thing that like you wish someone told you when you first started drifting that could have probably made you a better driver?
Like consistent setup, like a consistent setup. Like,
okay,
I was the guy that would
more on that.
Yeah, if you're drift car, if the wheels are pointing straight and you can drive it to the event, that's a pretty good car. If you don't have to worry about it overheating, but the consistency of each lap is going to come down to like your tires. And like we all started off like dumpster diving to get tires. Like you need to have the same size tires. You need to have the same age tires. You need to have the same width tires. You need to have the same pressure. Like if I'm doing a clinic day, we're gonna line your car up, or we're gonna say, "Hey, how's it going? Oh, what's this car? I've got these sway bars. I've got this tie rod. I've got this." I'm like, "What's your tire pressure?" And they're like, "I haven't checked them." And you're like, "That's step one. Like you have to do that part because it's not gonna matter if that one's flat and that one's got 60 psi. You're gonna spin out this way every single time, and I know it. So
No matter how good
consistency in
the
like
alignment
tires.
is, none of that stuff.
And I was before like tire deals. I had like a local shop that got Maxxis tires, and I remember like those were the best tires I could get that weren't insanely expensive, and that was what made me probably a little bit better driver. Is that I knew I could do my first 2 practice laps or my first set of laps on like junk tires just to like make sure the car is going to work, and then I would put on sticker tires because if I wanted to get a trophy, if I wanted to go to Street Life Tour in Ohio, that was a 16-hour round trip drive. I'm not going to show up and have different tires every lap. So like I made the sacrifice to like put good tires on when I wanted to like go after a trophy or go after an event that was giving out paychecks.
Well, so the thing is though, when you talk about consistency, you obviously you know how the car would operate on junk tires just because you kind of know your setup. You don't change anything. You kind of just I live with this alignment for like 4 or 5 events. I can try to feel it out. I mean, you know, slapping parts on cars seems to be like a really, really, really big thing right now. Like, oh yeah, I need Wise Fab. I need a grip kit. I need these big sway bars. I need a turbo LS. I need all this kind of stuff. So like, what's with the current grassroots scene? What's one thing that you like about what's going on, and what's one thing that you absolutely abhorrently dishate? Like one on both sides of the spectrum.
I like the amount of events that like this region has, the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm just outside of DC. You're pretty much Richmond. We can go to 2 to 3 events a weekend. If like we could go to 8 different events in a month within 3 hours of us.
Yeah, I have 7 tracks
ridiculous.
within 3 hours of my house.
And if I'm not going to say if the promoters or the people that are running the events are thinking kindly enough, but it's almost like whoever gets their schedule out first, hopefully people will plan according after that. Because I'm involved with Drift Nirvana. I've been there for 18 years or something. We already know the schedule for next year. It's not out, but they have the dates locked in kind of thing. So our schedule kind of doesn't move much, but when we see like maybe up and coming events that are trying to get big, like you're an idiot if you're trying to do it on the same event we are. Like look at his schedule. What do I dislike about the scene is when people just want to host at events because they think other events tech is too hard. So they're going to host an event that doesn't have tech, but then they don't have safety. They don't have fire. They don't have EMS. And it's damn near the same price as the events at Summit Point. So why would you go there with no fire, no EMS, no safety and wreck your shit? And then guess what? Everyone loses that customer, not just that track. Every facility around loses that customer because that person got screwed over. That person has medical bills. Like it's just bad news. Is we have kick-ass drift events everywhere, but don't go to the cheapest ones because you think tech's too hard at the other ones. They're gonna give you a hard time at tech, but they're not gonna say like you're a failure at life. You're still here. You still made the effort to get out here. They're not gonna push you away saying you're a piece of shit because you have the wrong fuel line clamps. Like
Right.
fix it. But like the other track's your car's gonna catch on fire and blow up. They're gonna be like, who teched that car? I don't know. That part kind of irks me.
That's fair. So can I play devil's advocate a little bit about that? So when I was coming up in drifting, we didn't have events. So being in the Mid Atlantic, I'll shout out a couple events like Swing Set, and Capital Dragway, and some of these we will say less expensive. I won't say the word cheaper, just less expensive events. It does seem if you're first starting. I mean, I hate to say it, Shenandoah Circuit is pretty intimidating for a new drifter. You've got no real runoff. You know, you've got. So I mean, when you're looking about like Washington Circuit, which is a kart track, that's great. But then even Washington's only like 2 times a year, maybe 3 if you want to pay for DOD. So some of these newer drifters, maybe they're being pushed to some of these other events just because it looks a little easier and less intimidating, so they can get on track. But I do agree with you 100%. lack of safety, insurance, waivers, wreckers. Yeah, that it does put a black eye, and that's kind of the flip side of us being in this area. We're spoiled for choice when it comes to opportunities, but not every opportunity is really weighted with the same amount of respect and tenure. Um, would you agree that Drift Nirvana at Summit Point is probably the longest running drifting organization / driftable track in the Mid Atlantic? I think, other than E-Town.
For a facility to host the events, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. E-Town would be the first, and then it was like Cabeto at NASA starting Hyperfest. So that was what, 2003?
Well, at Summit Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
before it moved to VIR.
That Cabeto wanting to do Hyperfest and bring in all this other stuff meant drifting was a new thing that he saw pop up. And I don't know if he saw it on a DVD or something else, but it was a opportunity that he brought to Summit. And then the owner of Summit Point, Jens Scott, was like, that's cool. I'm going to run my own like over here. And we literally would have a Drift Nirvana on the other side, like where the overflow parking would be while we're having Hyperfest at the same time. Like, that was pretty gangster. So, yeah, it's crazy that Summit's been around that long, and it's crazy it's like 33 minutes that way for me to get to. So, I'll be going there as long as it's there, and I'll do everything in my power to keep events there.
Well, and Kathleen runs a really tight ship, when it comes to the Drift Nirvana stuff. She is, I think, one of the biggest proponents, especially with the ownership changes, everything going on with Summit in the last probably, 6 years with all the craziness.
I think about 3 years ago, probably 6 years ago, it turned into like a corporation bought it, 2 guys. And then the one guy sold his share to the other guy. So that's probably been about 2 years, and we're working. We had 270 cars pre-regged. Like, we went over. As nuts as that was, we went over. But we also brought on a track. We brought on the Patriot pad for Saturday just for like the overflow for those beginners. Like, we had 90 new drivers that had never attended a Drift Nirvana ever. So we're like
1 in 3 of the new drivers at DOD had never driven an event before. That is insane. Yeah, I mean, again, an event like that, being able to offer what is it? So if they had that, so that's 8 tracks, 8 different layouts. Excuse me.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and we even had.
Go ahead.
We had Jefferson long, and we had Jefferson short scheduled, and we're like, hold on, like, let's. If we have the staff, we'll open that back up, but let's put them on the Patriot pad first, because it's like, if no one knows, Summit Point has 3 main circuits, and every one of those circuits has a 300-foot diameter skid pad. So like that picture of the Miata, I was on the Shenandoah circuit, and that had a skid pad, and we would wet it down, and new drivers could learn. So like we've kind of gotten away from that just because of like the registration side. It's like it's hard to decipher with all the new electronic ways to do it, but having the availability of literally having a course not even open, but like in our back pocket, that's what we brought to the table this last one, just to like cater to the people. And then by Sunday, those people signed up, even though they weren't even signed up for Sunday. They were like, this place is too good. I sharpened all my skills there. Let's get onto a track. So, and the lines were like nothing. You were there. The lines were like nothing anywhere.
I waited no longer than 5 minutes. Like, so you were talking about this before on social media about how Drift Nirvana has grown into this fluid machine. I mean, I will say pre-COVID, it was a little choppy, just being unbiased. And there was still some learning stuff. Like Yoshi was still very much involved, but then also like you're doing the family stuff and obviously being drifting dad, and people grow up. So the responsibilities have to be shifted. There were some new individuals that came in. DN Rivals, what was just jumping off and becoming a thing. US Drift had stopped doing their stuff as far as the Pro-Am side was concerned. So there was a lot of changes in, I would say, a span of like 3 years. Jefferson Extension was paved. That was huge.
So fast.
Yeah. So when it comes to the trajectory of where Drift Nirvana has been, that's why, again, I love Kathleen to death, and I think she is truly the glue at Summit Point for drifting when it comes to
deal with
Drift
us.
Nirvana.
Like,
yeah,
throwing out these ideas and have to be like, I don't have the staff to do this, even though this is good. So let's try it next time. But the staff so all the flaggers, like I myself as part of the Drift Nirvana crew, we get to like bounce the ideas around amongst us, and then we'll like pitch it. And then once we pitch that idea, they'll schedule the staff. They do the tech inspections. They do the staffing of the course. So therefore, they do the flagging.
Mm-hmm.
Us as Driftervana bros don't do the flagging. And I'll say it's like insurance reasons. Like, it's their track, it's their tech, it's their event. They profit it all. But we've only been giving more feedback like, hey, this run is 42 seconds. Don't wait 39 seconds to send a car. Wait 15 seconds. And it's like, flagger's going to flag. They're there and they have a flag. And drivers got to look. You know, drivers are looking ahead anyways. And if there's something flying around in the gazebo, look around. You're looking around anyway. So that has taken us a little bit of time to get up to speed on, but it's definitely worked. People were, you know, maybe shit talking a little bit, being like, dude, no way that the lines are going to be forever. No, you didn't bring enough
No,
tires.
absolutely
You know?
not.
So, yeah.
Dude, I went through 5 sets and 44 or 46 gallons of gas in 2 days of driving, and that's ending at 5 p.m. You know, and like,
Well, that's the whole thing. I don't know how big that facility is, but if you park not in a central area, you're kind of screwed because you're driving from one end of the facility to the other. So it's the America to Bisu for sure.
I ran out of gas on track because I forgot how far certain things were, and I didn't fill up after a certain amount of runs, so I had to get towed back to my pit because I was on empty. Like, it was.
I ran out
That's
twice.
happened.
I ran out
Yes.
twice. You don't want to stop. You get it like a good run
No.
group of people, and you don't want to stop, and you don't want to be a bitch that pulls off because the car sputtered. You just want to do laps.
Yeah, you tell bro, hey, like, check my tires, man. Are they still good? Hey, which ones? Give me a percentage. I got how many laps? Yeah. Oh god, the vibes are high, and that's that's again like the Drift Nirvana community. Like, there's a lot of people that strictly go to Drift Nirvana. One of them, I will call him out, David Blomo. David Blomo, I've never seen drive another circuit outside of US Drift, but he's also one of the most consistent drivers at Summit Point Motorsports Park.
Better be. He ain't leaving.
I'm just saying, it goes to show that, like, if you drift one track or one facility for so long, that consistency, like you were talking about, just even about your tires, like, you learn, okay, this is where, like, this, you know, section of pavement is slick, or when the temperature changes, this gets a little bit more gripped up, and you can make those adjustments as time goes on when you get more seasoned. But I guess going along the lines with talking about the likes and dislikes, what's one modification that you think these younger new drifters think is a must-have, but they absolutely do not need it starting out? Like, everyone says, like, we need this mod.
Yeah.
It would be like a gigantic lock kit. I don't want to say a brand, but say if you have an S chassis, it's GK Tech or Wisefab. But like,
Okay.
you could also just go out and rip your car as a shit car and just learn. So having my 40, is it slide time? Do I bring out another?
Yeah. So he brought visuals. Let's.
I brought visuals. It's 2025. So this is my 40. It's still my current 40. This had a DE swap in it at this time, but
VQ 350Z.
yeah. I bought this car. It was one of the first cars I ever saw drift at Old Dominion Speedway in, I believe, 2003. My brother Graham was working as security, and I saw that car bouncing off the wall, and I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. Well, fast forward 10 years from then, I was friends with a guy, and he posted it for sale, and I was like, oh shit, I have to buy it. But I knew I was going to do pro car stuff with the RX-8 I was going to drive. So I didn't have any money to put into this car. And it came with like 6 stock wheels, and I painted them all the same color. And I put on the wedding ring spacer, and I drove it for like a full year with nothing, just to prove that you didn't need to do all that stuff. It had a roll cage, it was good for tandem, and I had a suit, but I didn't do anything power-wise. I did a 4.9 final drive because that pepped it up, you know, RPM-wise, but you don't need any of that. And that car was that. If we'd go all the way back to 2013, 2014, any picture of that car was white, and it literally said shit on the side of the final. It was stock. You don't have to do anything.
Stock as shit.
You can do a seat, so it's like you don't wear out your knees from bracing on the side. Like, I even have a nice seat on my sim, but it's just like, you don't have to do anything. If it can drive there, it can drift there. That's it. You don't need a rig. You don't need a $100,000 truck. You don't need that. Shut up.
So yes, I mean, driving, putting a couple spares in the back that you can fit them, toolbox jack, impact, like something super simple. Because I mean, even a stock DE car in a 240 or a KA car, or even, I don't know, BRZ IS 300, you're getting 25 to 30 laps on like 50 psi, 225, 215s.
You're gonna be spinning out. You're not gonna be linking it. Don't think you're gonna be the real DK out there. It's not gonna happen. Hopefully you're not the worst, but everyone has to look the worst once. And then you're gonna learn and you're gonna say, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do this next time. And like it's not me or you's job to know what that one thing is that person's gonna change. It could be their cooling system. It could be that their stock LSD actually sucked really bad, no matter how much they paid for it off some forum. Like, you're gonna learn. It's not gonna be the best financial thing you've ever done, but that's not why we do it. It's not.
Well, this is actually a really good setup. So is there anything that you regret about your progression in drifting that you wish you could like delete from existence and it never could be seen or heard of?
Something embarrassing. How about you give me an example?
Okay, so 2013, I came out of the military. I had my black spray paint rattle canned FD, had the single turbo GT35, and nice 300, 350 wheel, 15 pounds, having fun, right? And Summit Point, it was my first event. Let's go back to my Grassroots, right? And I put it into the wall on the, oh, hey, one more lap, and then we'll go home.
Did you say it out loud? Say it to yourself.
I sure did, just because you have to enunciate it or it doesn't exist. And coming off of bridge, did carousel. This is before they let us do carousel, so this was the upper part of bridge course. Came around, and then coming down, and then doing Big Bend. I apexed when I should have outered, and I outered when I should have apexed, and I went over the crest, and I booped the soft barrier. And I, of course, drove the car to the event from Rockville. So Chris Burke and Ryan Downey, shout out those dudes.
Oh my gosh.
We used 3 or 4 ratchet straps to ratchet the hood down to the fenders, so the hood would stay down.
And you had wheel clearance?
Yeah, and we had wheel clearance, so we put the bumper cover inside the car with my spares and my jack that had to go out the window so I had to drive an FD RX-7 in 2013 after I wrecked it at Summit Point down I-270 from,
Insert the picture of that here.
Yeah, no, we'll make. I have pictures of that, and we'll be sure to showcase the boops. But enough of my boop. What is one thing from Mr.
It's a good
past?
boop. My shit car was not the main car. I had a hot dog. I had a pro car. They weren't even missile cars back then. That's how long ago this was.
Missile.
And I think I had just did the GK Tech roll center adapter, their version 1, and I don't even remember like what I was doing. And I just towed and goed it. Like I knew it gave me more camber, but it was already set before, and I didn't adjust my eccentrics. It was just pop the ball joint, and it extended it 30 mils.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tie rod readjusted, and I had to adjust tow. But I guess I took my wheels off, because that makes sense. So we're at VIR, and I'm breaking it in. And I guess it was some sort of pro-am, because Forsberg was there.
So this would have been like 2010?
No, it was at least 13, because I had my current 240.
Okay, yep.
Yes, I don't know when it was, but I know it was still a shit car. And the picture's on Ford's Instagram. I'm guessing it still is. And my first lap, no one else wanted to go. So I was going out first lap. And I had like a shake. And I was like, damn, did I flat spot these tires last event? I don't remember that. So I'm like going across the top section. And I was like, it's there. But when I'm turning, it's fine. So I'm like, well, fuck it. Just throw it at the top of the hill. And I transferred, and I'm looking at the wall. And when I went to transfer back, I heard like a pop. And then I'm like raising up, and I was like, what is going on? And I had no steering, and I skidded to a stop. And it was like Forsberg and Schneider and maybe Eggert were the first ones to walk around the wall. And my wheel was just like in my wheel well. No lug nuts in sight. No wheel spacers. I never had wheel spacers, but like the wheel fell off. I never tightened the lug nuts. Like it's no one's fault but mine. It was just, I was like, hey, no one else is going. And my brother, actually, I posted a picture of my brother torquing the wheels after I found new lug nuts. But Forsberg posted that picture. That was wild.
I'm gonna have to do a deep dive on Forsberg's Instagram.
It's gonna be a lot of scrolling.
Yeah. No, I'll have to. Yeah, when I'm on the throne, I can just just sit there and run up.
Great.
Oh, is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Outside of my blackballed search history, But speaking of Forsberg, obviously FD was a really important part of your career, just from an outsider's perspective, to really kind of showcase your skills on an international level, because there were some Japanese drivers that were actually driving Pro 2 when you were driving. That was like kind of the couple first years they came in to showcase their skills.
Stoneback, he's from Philly. But
No,
no, that wasn't until the next year.
was that 15?
Yeah, and I only drove it the 1 year. That would have been
Power Vehicles came, Andy Gray.
and he brought Chicken Diarrhea. I forget what the actual name is. They both had chasers. So Andy went straight into pro.
Mm-hmm.
God, what is that guy's name? His name's Chicken Diarrhea on Instagram.
I'd have to go back and look myself, yeah.
As a gray chaser. He did that. He did Pro 2 in 15. I do remember that. But FD was crazy. Like, I never thought it would be the platform that I was going to get to do. I always just knew that US Drift was like the hardest thing that I thought I could get into. And it took like several years of like doing pro-ams and then finally having the opportunity to do it, which was moving up with the RX-8, with them building it, and the support of having a shop build the car, and John having his knowledge of building, me not having the bill of having a car built, but having the input. And I want to like refrain from saying their name because they suck so bad. Like, what did I learn out of pro drifting? Business management. When you suck at it, it all goes down. So that person sucked really bad at it. So they know who they are. They suck. I have my trophies. They don't have theirs because they didn't get them like I did. So I learned so much from business in pro drifting, and it was crazy the relationship I would still have. Like, I had Gooden text me last week. Why did he? Just talking about like the dumbest thing. How did you do your rear panels on your coupe? Like, just that's what we talk about. Like, and I used to travel with him when he was traveling with Chelsea. So 2013, I got to travel around and be Chelsea's spotter. So because I knew him from Miata stuff in like 2006, 2007, like, what is this world? It's crazy.
Well, 2013, Pat was still running the discount tire car, wasn't he?
Pat was with like Hoonigan in 2013, not Dye.
I know. Dye had the discount tire one for a while. I thought Pat picked that up after because the Dye.
Pat had like 1552. He had Hoonigan and he had Njuku on his car. It was like the flat gray, and he had like the white 1552 wheels that I guess he got from Hoonigan.
Yep.
Hurt was just hanging out with him. Hurt was just like figuring out how to do videography at the time. And it's crazy seeing him at like the Drift Appalachia events. Like, he has like bare hands. When he gives you a high five, like this hand feels small. So yeah, the people that you just like, oh hey, what's up, man? Just nuts.
Well, the big events like Hyperfest, Grid Life, LS Fest, Drift of December. I mean, you're talking about events that people fly or drive in from all over the country and possibly parts of all over the world just to be able to hang out. And these relationships, they don't die just because you're not driving in those things. So when we're talking about the community of drifting, again, being a young motorsport, what's like one thing that if you're a new driver and you show up to Drift Nirvana for the first event at like a Shenandoah day, what's like one thing that's like a faux pas that like you really wish you see people do it and you're like, if you didn't do that, I'd probably want to talk to you or actually like you a little bit more?
If you come to Drift Nirvana, if you come to Summit Point and we're hosting a drift event, we're going to have a driver's meeting. And if you've been to every Drift Nirvana, you're going to say, this is so dumb. And then at the end, we say, hey, if you're new, hang around. Let's see what your car's like. What do you have? Tell us what your setup is. Like, you would have already walked out by that point. But hopefully that new driver,
sleeping in my trailer.
It's what we always offer. It's like, hey, let us know if you're new and we'll help you out. Like, the facilities at Summit Point are the facilities that tracks wish they had, that drifters wish that they had. Like, we have classrooms. We have heated and cooled shitters. Like, we have facilities.
Showers. You have showers.
We have showers. We have concessions that are open from 10 a.m. to, probably 3 or 4 o'clock. Like, we have real racetrack shit when you'll go to the other tracks and hopefully they have a Don John's that's been empty. Like, we offer so much. If you're coming to our event, and I want to reference to like Drift Nirvana, like my meat and potatoes of what I normally do. It's like, ask questions, because when you go out and you wad your shit first lap and I see your car on the trailer or, on the wrecker, I'm be like, oh dude, you're in the classroom. Like, I know you look new, but like the last thing we want to do is single you out to say like, hey, we saw that Supra come in. Make sure you come see us. That's also embarrassing. But like, I'm going to casually roll up and I got my little hoodie on that says like instructor. Like, I don't want that to
make you run away, but like I'm going to ask you questions about your tire pressure, and hopefully you know what they are. Because
The
I
the
don't want
blue hoodie of
everyone.
intimidation
I
with the
don't.
DN badge.
Yeah, it's so dumb that like I literally have the mindset of like that customer needs to return to have the growth necessary for the entire community to work. It's like that corporate mindset. It's like if that customer leaves, everyone leaves the customer. You know, if that customer buys a sim, you know, should they buy Sim Magic? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Just get them in it, and then they'll get on Sim HQ and buy something from them.
Whatever works for them, right?
Yeah. So if you're at a new event, come ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask input. Simple as that.
Yeah. So when we were coming up, the one thing that we haven't talked about that much were forums. Forums were like the meat and potatoes of like before Discord was big or Facebook and pages or groups. Like MA240SX, I mean Zilvia, SlidewaysOnline.com. Like some of that stuff was really where community was started, and the anonymity kind of helped you, so you could just have a screen name and kind of ask questions, and then like, oh hey, internet friend in real life at event, you know, stuff like that. Getting away from the forums and more onto these like online groups that are like LSZG drift group only or like this kind of stuff. Is there one thing that you think social media and the internet is doing better than we used to do, or do you think it's doing something worse, just like as an overall versus the forum mindset?
It'd be like the opportunity to know what's going on is better, because forums are cool, but you know, we didn't have an iPhone 16 in our pocket to know how to browse online. Like we had Blackberries and like barely had the internet, but that wasn't a mobile friendly site. Yeah. So the opportunity to do that, like now having DMs or Instagram, like you could DM Reese Millen right now. Hopefully he would answer, but like the opportunity of knowing how to do something is way more open. Not everyone has a desktop to be sitting at. I think it's definitely for the better because everyone knows what's going on at this moment, at this second. Or you can take your GoPro, which we're filming off of right now, and just jet set it over and then upload that clip right to Instagram or whatever your favorite platform is to get your views, to show people where you're at. I've definitely tried to like make a move more towards that. Like I've been like very static with my Instagram numbers, like as far as growth. I've probably been at like 9,000 for 4 or 5 years because I just,
Wow.
if someone wants to send me something, cool, I'll just post it. But like I want to say I'm not like putting a lot of effort in. Like I've tried to edit up clips before, but I don't have like someone on the payroll to just do reels for me. It's not like that serious for me. Like hopefully that someone will make a cool one and want to be like, I've been following Dan ever since he did that clip, you know, with Chris. Like how crazy would that be? Like, hey, I've always wanted to do something for you, and I finally got enough footage. Like I've gotten shit like that, and I say, hey, that's awesome, thanks. Let me get your cheeseburger next round or something. Like the opportunity to do shit, to get it out there as quick as possible is now. It's the technology that we have. So use it and abuse it. The forums for building the car is, yeah, that's gone. It's gone forever. But like now there's just like more long form YouTube tutorials of how to do it, which is completely different. But even I have some for installing suspension stuff or why I do stuff a certain way, but I'm not going to get into like why I wired an HR into my car with a switch panel instead of having a whole G35 wiring harness to talk to all the other modules that it needs to talk to. So
no, I've seen some of your videos. I mean, they definitely are in-depth enough for what you're looking to push out, and I think there's a place for every kind of piece of content out there, and between Google and YouTube and Instagram, you could really find whatever you're looking for. So you actually brought up a really good point talking about Reels when you're talking about social media and the ability to not have the time or someone on the payroll, especially if you're a grassroots drifter. Like social media funding is not even part of your budget, let alone tires. He made a point at PRI talking to his panel about if there was a dude, he was at FD, Irwindale, or Long Beach, some guy came up and just like showed him this reel, just this badass segment of him coming in off the touch and go, and then like we'll zoom in like a really kind of like 3-shot, 15-second reel, and he threw the kid $30. I mean that is invaluable to be able to have someone who just walked up with content that you could be able to not only showcase your sponsors with all the livery you have, being able to showcase your talent, but then also you worked exactly 0.0 seconds on that. And
yes,
I think
you had no work invested in that.
Yeah. So shout out that this is the shameless plug to be able to, if you are a new kid at an event, Dan, I want you to speak on this. If you are a new kid, guy or gal, whatever, at a drift event, and a photographer or videographer gets content of your car, pay the $5 for the non-watermarked image or the $10 or whatever to support your local videographer, because chances are they're going to remember you at the next event and they're going to get more content, and you can build these relationships just like you would with drivers, like you would with instructors, like you would with track staff. How important do you think the relationships, not with just the drivers, with media personnel is when you're talking about showcasing skill and not having the time to do it on your own?
A lot of the media guys are like introverts. And
Yes.
it's not that like drivers are extroverts, but like what they're doing is. And we can see you guys lining the course.
In your little vests.
They're mandatory to be on the wall. But like we don't know to find you to be like, hey, did you get that run when I like door tap Downey? Like, did you get that? But like if you come up to me, I'm going to give time to talk to you, and drivers like talk to media because you never know who they're going to be or what they're going to be. Like, hey, Chuck, Shutter Slayer now. Like he's doing some Larry Chen shit.
Good God.
But he's still just like the homie. Like we're in a group chat. And it's just, hey, Chuck, what are you doing today? Like, appreciate everybody because you never know what they're going to do and how good they're going to do it. And hopefully you guys can do it together on the way up. And everyone's going to be like on their way up. And even Matt's appreciative of the random media person. If they had a media pass or even didn't, he saw the value in that. And who knows if that $30 is going to change that kid's life, but it's going to change his mentality a little bit to put in a little bit of extra effort. So why wouldn't you do that? And if you're there to do it, record everybody, and just who knows what's going to happen. Accept the, what is it called? Collab invite on Instagram. Just do it. Why not?
Always accept. Always accept.
Like they put in work. You put in work on the track to be on track. You put in work to give that lead line or give that chase line to get someone else in there. Like, who knows if someone caught that? But like, if someone's going to make an edit, don't just say, hey, thanks. You know, it says if you did or didn't invite the collab.
Mm-hmm.
Accept it. Move on. Put it on your feed.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Well, and that kind of also goes into the modification part of drifting is one thing, but a couple of organizations are making a huge push. Edgar up at Drift Indy is a huge proponent of this. Brian is slowly has been serious about this, the pretty cars. So the missile mentality. I hate the word missile. I hate the missile car mentality. I prefer side quest because it doesn't need to be.
You have to have a main quest.
I do, but you could also start with like when you start a video game, like you talk about introverts. Most drifters played video games when we were younger because it was a lot of fun, it was technical, and it was just something we enjoyed. As a video game player, I enjoy doing as much of the side quests ahead of time. So when I do my first main quest, when it's meant for level 1, I can come in with like a level 50 sword and then just be wrecking shit. There's some value in still being able to have a side quest car that doesn't look like something that came off of like Black Sheep or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or Uncle Buck. Like, it's okay to have one color car. What are your thoughts on getting away from the missile mentality? Do you like it? Where do you stand on this?
No one should like it because it's not a thing. It's a temporary time. But I'm saying that as my car is like super wrecked upstairs from the last trip Appalachia. I had to prioritize how to get it back together, even past tech. So what US drifted this year, they said your car has to be one color.
That's it.
We don't need your money if your car is ugly as piss. I've been like pushing that, not with the whole voice of speaking for Nirvana, but it's just like, oh, sick, bro, you got the BN kit and you didn't paint it? Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you not paint your car? Oh, I don't have the money. Well, like, come to as many events as you can. Going back to that, like, are you doing this for yourself? You're just doing it for fun? Are you doing it for media? Are the media guys going to love you as much when your car's is ugly?
Yep.
Nope. So don't be mad when you put all this money into your body kit and you didn't get pictures taken because you didn't paint it.
I turbo canned 2 cars in my driveway, the Vet and the TZ, the night before events, just because they were US Drift events to be able to meet that criteria. But
it's not hard.
It's not. No, you saw my story. You know, I was like 9:30 p.m. with trash bags on the wheels, and then I show up the next day, and you just like, well, I guess he's committed. you know.
It's
But
but it's just a better product. Maybe it's because we host events in West Virginia. It's just been slipping under the table. But I wish we could harp more on it. But that's like an individual opinion. But I like what US Drift is doing also, and Langley. But yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think it's kind of pushing people to if your car looks better, there's less of a chance that you're just going to do a whole bunch of dumb stuff and just start wrecking into your buddies and
like
some
I
of
don't
the
have a bad picture over here because my car was like you don't get a picture of like you and Vaughn if your car's not pretty. Like you just don't.
Can you back that one up a little bit? That was a fan. You got closer like it was a boomer. Yeah, so that's Vaughn's original Ford Mustang. Was that 07, 05, 06?
This is up to like I want to say this was 2009 because this was my first coupe. So this is from my passenger seat. That's myself right here, but like Vaughn's in my window. We're going under the bridge at some point. So Shenandoah, of course.
Beautiful Richards of December shot again.
Yeah,
so
crazy. Make your car pretty.
I mean,
just that little extra effort. I actually I think Downey wanted to kill me, Ryan Downey, because he made this vert, and he was like, "Hey, like
oh my
I want to have like
God.
another car that I can have available," and I was like, "Cool," and then he did it, and I was like, "Paint it." He's like, "I'm so out of money. My wife's gonna be mad at me," and I was like, "But if you paint it, she won't be as mad at you for having a shit-looking car." So I made him paint it, and it turned out great.
Well, yeah, it had an S15 front on on an S13 coupe, and he had those. Oh, it is a vert. Oh, I'm sorry, that is a vert. You're right. It was a vert.
Yeah.
And then, but then lo and behold, he has 17-inch SN95 Mustang tri-spoke wheels.
He has like
rear.
32 of those things, and I hate him for that. But at least they're all white, and the car is
Yeah.
presentable. And we did everything but get like an action shot. He has two very presentable cars. We didn't get the action shot. Like the whole goal was like, hey, we should do at least one full lap together. But we did. Whatever.
Well, Ben P, Team Portea at US Drift, he's a really big proponent of, what's it, the 5 and 50? It has to look good, or 2050. It has to look good from 20 feet away, going 50 miles an hour, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like, you've got some action shots actually of the RX-8 on the bank. You got one of those Larry Chen photos. Is that readily available?
Yeah, this is either 2014 or 15. This is the Inner Bank. R.I.P.
Irwindale. So I will tell you this right now: if you looked at that car from 5 feet or less at any angle, it looked haggard as hell after a full season. So,
even,
but in that picture, even at round 8,
the last round,
looked beautiful, right?
Yeah, this is 15. I know this is 15 because it has a wing. Oh no, there's
Big Wang Gang.
So that was 15 Jersey. And the bumper, I remember exploding the bumper, and then Kevin Wells walking up and being like, it has to be on for the run. And I was like, it can't be. And I had a friend that was really good with zip ties, my buddy Roe. And that was a lap that I posted the other day on Facebook. That bumper is so haggard, but it was in D-Max Japan's website or commercial for D1 that following year. And if I didn't have for a bumper, it probably wouldn't have been in there. But I got no credit, but it was cool that I was part of that.
Yeah, so Ken, the technical director of Formula Drift, still working as the technical director. I would say that level of scrutiny that he has for some of the cars, if you watch some of these competition timeouts, it's in the rules. It's in the rules. And
Kevin's Corner is like the best thing to watch after the drift event. And it's usually like the Friday before the next event, they'll post it. And it's crazy. Like the behind the scenes of what it takes to run an FD event is insane.
So that actually runs into a segue about talking the next level progression. So we did a really great job talking about grassroots, entry-level drifting, first drift event stuff. But there are people watching this that have been following you and drifting for long enough to want to move up from that grassroots into the Pro-Am and then eventually try to get a license, whether it be through like East 10 or the US Drift Scouting Report, which you were a part of. And then some of these other licensing organizations across the country. So for the individuals that are looking to make that jump into Pro-Am and hopefully to get a Pro-Spec license, can you kind of shed some light on just how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to just running 4 rounds of a Formula Drift program in a couple of months?
Like, if you've sunk your teeth in it and have gone through the ranks and you've gotten your scattering report license, or you've earned it with East 10, or you've earned it with, I guess Drift Indy doesn't anymore, but like if you've earned it through the organization, you've already talked to someone that says, are you ready to spend this much? So I think TLO won the championship this year. So he's
Tommy Lemaire, for those aren't familiar.
the Canadian. Yeah. So he won Pro Spec this year. In his interview on the Outer Zone, they said that he spent 150 after the car was built, ready to show up on grid. So you're going to spend
$150,000.
$150 spent. The car was already ready. So,
and you say what? Probably about 100 in that car too, give or take.
Yeah,
easy.
And you're going to have partners, but partners aren't going to be giving 100% discount. Hopefully, they're going to be giving 50. But like, you're still investing in that car to make it something worthy of showing up to beat Alex Yeager or Nate Chin or something. Like, you can't take away what monetary people have put in to show up with a stock car, or not a stock car, but just an LS swap car, and say you're going to beat them. Like, you're not.
Like Corvette with angle and nitrous.
You're not going to do it. No. So you're not going to go into it blind, and that's like weird to say. Like, you're not going to get blindsided. Still there? We're still there?
Yeah, I still got you. Yeah.
You're not going to get like blindsided by it, but you're going to spend a lot of money. And I'm not going to say you shouldn't do it, but I'm going to say that you should think about if that's the path you want to go down right now. My timing was perfect to do it. It's all I wanted to do. Drifting was the only thing that I didn't have to bring a girlfriend to all the events. I was just doing drifting for me. I didn't have to worry about if I had enough money for dinner Friday night to go out. Like, that wasn't the part of the life I was in with yet. So choose whatever path you want to go down, and hopefully it's right for your timing and stuff. But like, I don't tell people to get out the credit card to do this. It's not worth it for that. So like, you're going to spend a lot of money to go pro drifting.
Yes.
You're going to spend an uncomfortable amount of money to go pro drifting. If you can do that, do it. But do not do it if you're getting out the credit card and just like living to just pay the minimum balance. Like, that's not going to pay off in dividends to getting trophies. And I got some that I didn't have to put on credit cards. Like, if it's family money, cool, do it. But don't try to be like a hero because you want to get a sick Instagram reel. That's not, in my opinion, that's not the best way to do it.
That's fair. I mean, I think we can even see over the past like 5 years, there's definitely been some drivers in Pro Spec who got the chance, and they've been wheeling for a couple of years, but the progression hasn't been there. Like, as far as like learning the program and learning what they should be doing and kind of how their advancement should be based on, all right, you finished X place last year. All right, we need to find what can our program do to move up a couple of spaces, because you do have sponsors. You do have your own brand that you're probably pushing, whether it be merchandise or some other platform. Especially like a guy like Taylor Hall. Love Taylor Hall. He does the Drift University, so he needs to be able to be showing fantastic a weekend of proper drifting to be able to sell. Hey, come learn from Taylor Hall. I think there's a lot of things that some people don't think as far as like a brand when you're talking about that jump. Also,
that's the time investment, and that's what I could do was a time investment, because the sponsor I had wasn't open to changing my car look compared to his, because I had someone that wanted to support me with the monetary wise. Like, that was like the downfall of what I learned out of business. So the opportunity I had was that I got to drive this car, and it didn't cost me anything to get in that seat, but it cost me in the money that I could have had to help offset the cost that I had. That's even like a big thing of what maybe someone would stop a pro ride for, is because they're getting limited with, even as big as that car was, they weren't doing all these other side quests. Like you said, the side quests was what the goal was. Now that the opportunity changed. So do it to the capacity that you can, but don't be broke off of it.
Yeah, the broke drifter mentality, I think, is probably one we've all lived at some point in our life.
Yeah, can't deny.
But when you're on that national scale, you fake it till you make it. But people can see a lot of stuff past social media, and you can read between the lines on certain, like, oh, you didn't show up for this round, and then whatever the reason may be, or blah blah blah. I don't know. I think being smart about things, and I've never experienced the pro side of stuff, but talking to enough friends and people that are involved, whether it be in the past, the present, or people who have just gotten their license. I know you're a huge fan of our boy Jacob Duncan.
Yes.
And he is quite possibly one of the, he's the bee's knees in my opinion when it comes to local Virginia drifters who are just the progression in 2 years. You would never know that kid is 17 years old and started on a sim rig.
4 years ago, I had a status that I just reshared to him and his dad about selling the whole body panels off my car because I was doing the whole 2F kit.
Mm-hmm.
And someone sent me a message saying, "Hey, someone's going to message you. Make sure you check your requested folder." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And it was his dad, and he was like, "Hey, I want to come buy your body panels." And I was like, "Okay." And I gave him an address. He's like, "All right, we'll be there in 3 hours." And like when someone says that, they're going to show up with asking price. And so I was literally in the garage, and they showed up in this whatever truck they had brought, and we talked for like 4 hours. My wife's like blowing me up. She's like, "Are you alive? Like, who are these people? That dude had a really big beard." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine. Like, they're really cool." And it turned into like we started getting to drive at RIR, but then like that organization went away. So now it's like it turns out he won't be able to drive till he's 18. So we're just gonna like build the shit out of the car. I was like, I have these panels that I've worn out, and he's like, "Yeah, but he's got to learn it." I guess he was 15 at the time, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" Like that's so rad that you guys are gonna like do this together. So I talked to them about daily actually. So yeah, I'm invested with them with the time and commitment, and I don't want to say the direction of what they're going, but they're doing way better than me actually. They're killing it.
Yeah, no, I talked to James's dad probably, if not daily, weekly, or we'll hang out and he'll come by the pizza shop or whatever, and we'll just BS. But
Yeah.
it's nice to, like you were talking about support with your brother Graham. It's really cool to see that family element. Dad is the jack of all trades. Mom is running food and just doing stuff. His sister.
I always try to park next to him
drives
for that reason.
Yeah. Oh, you too. So okay, so
Yeah.
you go on the one side, I go on the other.
for
You
it.
got Danny. But yeah, no, it's. I think there's not many people that have that full family, I would say, component or element of support that are also at that level of where he is clawing at it.
He's there.
Yeah,
He's there.
yeah.
Was it did Hurt or Nappy Boy post a video of him from Drift Appalachia of like the gangster shit he was doing behind Wilkerson? Like, so
it was either Hurt or Drift Sumo Speed, because I know he's been Zach and Danny. He's been following those guys too. But
so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, 17 years old, started on a sim, I think at 13, 14, something like that. And that, I mean, again, that kind of segues now to talk about the pushes into the motorsport. Sim racing, sim drifting, anything sim related in probably the last 6 years. I know the pandemic was huge with the virtual drift championship and stuff like that. You have a sim, obviously. I have a sim. When it comes to sim drifting versus real drifting, you learned obviously in real life. What are some of the differences, and why do you prefer what you prefer? I'll put it that way. When it comes to sim drifting,
nothing's gonna replace drifting. But being able to like just hop downstairs after you put the kids down, and you're wearing pants or you're not, you can't compare that to nothing. It took me a while because of the investment that I knew I wanted to do by doing it once and not starting off with like a Logitech G2900 setup or something. Like I'm sitting in a TR120 rig or something right now with a really nice seat that literally matches my car, so that feels the same. The hydro feels about the same. It's relative to what my car is. Does it feel exactly the same? No. But the movements are what you're simulating. I don't claim that this is my claim to fame. Mm-hmm. This is the downtime in between of what it takes to keep those skills refined. And the results speak for themselves when you talk about FD Utah, and then they're going to shorten the course up. If you hadn't left yet, a driver is going to load their sim and shorten that run up 600 feet and do the run up as they change it. Like the opportunity to hone your skills before an event, or just like earlier today, I found the track at RIR, like what US Drift's currently running. And it was so fun to drive. It was really so much fun. And it's just like, oh, this is completely accurate. Like how this flick is. And oh, that jump is there. If you do it early, you're going to hit the wall. Like there's no recovery. Like,
nope.
Just remembering what it's like. And I drove there in like July, like right before my birthday. So it's like, oh shit, this is just like it, And I'll try to pick a VQ car, like something that's relative to like what my car is currently, and it's fun. You can get super carried away with it,
I'm actually not too good at driving like the pro cars because there's a lot going on. I just put like an H pattern shifter back in here because I was like, I don't drive a sequential, but yet I'm driving a sequential in the game. So I'm going to switch it back to what it used to be, which is cool. But like I have like an F1 style wheel also when I want like.
Ooh, you're part of the Fanatec Club. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. And then like the paddles. Can you hear them? Can you hear them?
Sebastian Vettel, some Lewis Hamilton stuff.
Well, yeah, I'll try to drive on F1 car, but I have the same grip wheel that I run, the stage wheel. Yeah, you see
Shout
that?
out Bill at
Bill.
Stage Wheels. I sure do.
Give me more. So I run a DD1, so an older tech setup, but Fanatec hanging pedals. I think the V3s, a VM shifter and handbrake. And yeah, this is a lot of inspired stuff from my boy Austin Meeks, and I'm glad I waited until I could do a setup like this in my basement. It's not an eyesore to our house. If I was gonna have my random, I'm just gonna have a setup I pull out and I pull up to the couch. Like, I can like push all these pedals and like start bending shit. So
like it's not a fold away treadmill, you can't just like hide it.
If you can get into sim driving, do it. I wanted to get into it where I have like a nice PC that's got cool LED fans and liquid cooled and stuff. So this is something that I'll have the neighbors over and they'll be like, hey, let's go downstairs and I'll show you what I like to do kind of thing. So it's fun to get new people on it. I actually taught my neighbor who needed to get their driver's license. Like they had never had a U.S. driver's license. And I was like, hey, come downstairs. Let's go.
No
you never
way.
thought of it that way. Yeah, 100%. Just so like they were just driving around that Tokyo, the street course where you're just driving. That one, she was just driving around.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And
so they like blew their mind.
At the same time, or
I mean, shifting? I was doing the shifting, but she was doing the gas and the brakes. It didn't matter.
No way.
Yeah, just because.
Now, did she get her license?
Yeah, she drives now. She drives a nicer car than I do.
I didn't even think about the application of just being driver's ed. But also,
and I've had my daughter, my 5-year-old. She either can do pedals or steering. She can't do both yet. So with the seat all like pulled up, so it's funny just sharing the love.
You're gonna have like a female Hiro Manoa on your hands.
If she wants to, that's fine. I'm not gonna say.
Or Jay the Drifter, one way or the other.
You can't eat if you don't do 6 laps and link it. I'm not gonna get like that on her. You can't be an overbearing father.
Boarding school punishment. Go do a BISO or school course, and so that
like the opportunity to drive that track. How nuts is that? Everyone's like, "Oh, don't you want to go to Japan?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." Let me just log in, and they're like, "No, not like that." Actually, I gave you a ride. Oh God, what is his name?
Come on,
I gave you a ride.
You can do it.
His name's Jay, or I think his name was Jay. He's not the drifter, but he was born here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Got stationed in Japan. I guess armed forces. I don't know which branch.
Okay.
But he's mutual friends with my boy John, and he was like, "Hey, I'm coming to 100 Drifters. Like, I want you to give him a ride." So he's like, got the little vlogger cam, and I was like, "Hey, vlogger cam guy," and we're talking. And he's like, "Yeah, I go to all the events in Japan, and I like help translate from English to Japanese or vice versa." I'm like, "Oh, that's
pretty cool."
And so he was riding, and he's like, "Yo, your like Summit Point is huge. This is a Sioux, but your tracks are bigger." And I was like, "Our tracks are bigger?" He's like, "Every track is bigger, actually." Like when I got lost, so I saw the tracks. I think I saw all of them. They're all bigger than what we have. And I was like, okay. And I like ended up giving him a ride. And he was like, all right, like when are you shipping your car over? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you could win like FDJ3 and FDJ2. And I was like, let's not do that. Like, let's just hang out. I'm just showing you what we have here. And I thought that's what you wanted to vlog. And then he has like 400,000 followers on Instagram. And I was like, shut the front door. Like, who are you again? And because you never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure his name's Jay, but we're going to get back to it. And you just never know. And the fact that he was like, what we have is just as crazy, but I've driven all the tracks that he's referencing on the sim. And it's just crazy to think that that does relate, because every time I'm doing like North Course, you do the big backy entry, you go past, I guess, all the garages, and then it's like a super tight transfer right there. And it is almost like a first gear flick. You're kind of just like skating, and then you get down to the bottom of the hill.
And then you're just going down the hill along that wall, and then
it's just like, what the heck is? We have every track if you want it. The amount of tracks we have is crazy.
No, I agree. I think that the perspective, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out, I know we would talk about Summit Point a lot. There's a lot of really great tracks. I think Summit Point really is it should be a mecca. If you're in the Mid-Atlantic,
James
which
Webb.
is 6 hours.
Mr.
James
Boost.jp. Yeah. 400,000 followers.
So yeah, check out James's Instagram for some fantastic content featuring yours truly as well.
It's not out yet, but it's coming up soon. So yeah, I've got a couple friends that have followed him back because he was just like a normal guy. That's like the coolest thing. I don't want to say he's an introvert because I just met him, but like he doesn't look like the big vlogger type. Like he knows Samet, he knows.
Okay.
I guess he knows Jimmy in some capacity, but like he was just like another guy walking around with a recording device at Summit, and I was just like, yeah, let me just give you a ride. Like I'm gonna give everyone the same opportunity if they have a suit on. If you don't have a suit, I'm gonna be a little bit more mad to not do a tandem ride along, but I'm gonna bring a spare, so hopefully you can fit in it.
I started bringing a spare this year. It was an old suit of mine, and I'm not exactly a healthy American, so yeah, I may have to look on.
I'm taller, so that gives like people slack in other places. So yeah.
So to talk about getting into drifting, we'll circle back to this. We talked about the sim stuff. You mentioned a lot of components of the sim ring that you do have. If you had the space that you have versus a garage or having both, would you suggest someone invest their money in a sim rig or buying a car and then just slowly, progressively modifying it in real life? Which would you kind of suggest for the newbie drifter grassroots community?
Do you have a drift car already?
You do not.
Okay, you don't have it.
Then
I would say computer.
I got $5,000 and I can buy a drift car, some spare wheels, junk tires.
Do you have the capability to work on a car?
I mean, YouTube's a thing. This is being on YouTube.
So if you bought a car, or if you convinced your parents to buy you a car, and it passed the state inspection and it passed emissions, if you live in a county like that, you could probably drive it to a track if you're driving it to work, and bring a spare set of tires and go drifting. If you don't have family support, if you don't have a garage, you don't need a garage to go drifting. But if you don't have a driver's license, then get a sim, because a reckless ticket or a driving without a license ticket is way more expensive, and points.
Driving uninsured, all that wonderful stuff. Yeah.
I don't not regret having a sim when I started, because I just put everything into driving, and sims weren't a thing in 2007. Of course, I had I had a Logitech wheel on my PlayStation 2, but that didn't transfer for shit. Like that.
Gran Turismo 3 was not a drifting program.
It was not at all. I mean, my brother and I had a setup book for like courses. Like we had figured out what shocks do what and what do this. But if you don't know cars, but you like drifting, if you've been to a drift event, if you've been to an FD event somehow and you skipped all the other ones below it, don't think you're just going to hop into FD if you get a sim. But I think you should just get a sim, or go to Micro Center and see what they have, or send a message to me. I've definitely had random people come over that have bought a part off me, and I'm like, do you have a sim? Let me show you what I got. Let me take you to my basement. So get a sim. I would honestly say get a sim, but you don't have to get like this one. You can get the one that the play seat, or you can get the one that like goes under your couch. That's fine. But I wanted to do this at this level with where I'm at with drifting, kind of thing.
That seems fair. I mean, again, and also being able to have the space for a sim. It may not take up a lot of space, but if you got like an apartment and space is already kind of tight,
Yeah, this thing's probably every bit of 5 feet long.
Okay.
And I'm sitting in it comfortably, so it's probably 48 inches wide.
It's a 5x4.
I have my monitor's this big. Can you see it in the thing? My arms are this big. So it does take up room, but I wanted to commit a corner of my new basement to a sim, and I finally did it. So, yeah.
So do you think, like, I know we're just using some numbers, like for, let's say, $1,500, you think you could get something decent that
you could get a driving simulator? I don't know if you'd be able to upgrade it, but having the conversation of like, could you get into the direction of what you want to do? I don't think you're going to lose all your money if you don't realize it's the way you want to go, but I also don't want to say that you should buy the $600 pedals from the jump. That's probably not a thing. I don't even know how much these were, but I knew from driving like real race cars, I'd only driven a couple cars that were legit floor mount pivot for like the brake and clutch, and I did not like them. Like a Tilton style pedal box, I did not like that. I always like a hanging pedal. So it took a little bit more, and you had to figure out which bracket. Sorry, I'm looking to see how we hung it, because
hmm
Austin kind of just figured that out. He's like, "Oh, you need this bracket with this rig," and that's when it comes down to like, could you do it blind? Yes. Would it take you longer to figure out? Yes. Maybe you would save a couple pennies, but I still probably had about 8 hours in of just adjusting this and like setting it up to where it felt like relative. It's crazy.
Well, then you got to get the wheel specs. I know, like if you're on a lot of the pages and stuff, like the drift to seto and all that kind of things. Like Ryan Literal has a really awesome setup for the Fanatec wheel for the DD 5 Newton, and I modeled my specs over that. So like there's enough support in that community, just as there would be in the drifting community for. All right, I just bought my setup. What specs do I need, or how do I mount this, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's true. And who knows if you're just ever in a room and he's there. Like that was 3 days ago. I hop on and I'm like, that can't actually be literal. Like in the chat that we're in,
Right.
he's like, "Sup, rapper?" And you're just like, "Oh, it is you. What are you doing?" You know, he's like, "How'd you make it in here?" It's kind of an elite room, and it was just like, "Nah, we're good. We're shooting shit about stuff and his changes." But he didn't like too much. But you like never know who you're gonna run into in the sport, in the capacity of whatever you're in, and if that's cool, that's cool. So it's cool. That was a cool thing.
Absolutely. And Discord, growing away from the forum stuff, Discord's a really great medium to be able to use to communicate, link up with people all across the world. Using it in tandem with Assetto Corsa, and also CarX is another platform that uses it really well.
Yeah, that's how I have this. Like I'm not a PC guy, and Chris, you literally helped me walk through setting this up. Like I have a GoPro, I have this headset, so I can talk and do drifting with people. So yeah, help me figure this out so we can do this silly podcast where we talk about stuff we've already talked about before.
Yeah. No, I remember. So Yoshi actually taught me how to use Discord because he hired me to run those virtual drifting championships they were doing through the Drift Nirvana virtual whatever.
I remember.
And no, that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that, but I'd never used Discord before, and it was again
it's big now.
Helping. Oh my god!
It's the official way that FD puts out their like messages to drivers and teams, and I'm still in that folder. So
yeah,
it gets spicy sometimes.
During the drivers meeting, they're like, "Did you check the Discord? If you check the Discord, we definitely answered that." And
someone on your team should have checked it.
Yeah, Ryan. I've heard Ryan Sage and everybody else kind of gets a little bit salty when people ask stupid questions in an FD drivers meeting.
Andy Luck, you can't. Andy Luck.
Oh my god!
Right wherever you're at.
Yeah, he'll stand up and be like, "Who said that?"
I literally read a thing earlier where he literally said, "Who are you?" Because the dude's screen name wasn't a real name; it was like a dude's nickname. He's like, "What's your name?"
Yeah. Oh, but so we talked about the sim stuff, which is really great. So obviously, if you are looking to get into drifting and you are a drifter, you don't have a car and you don't have a sim rig, if you have the ability to put a sim rig in where you're at, it could be more beneficial, bang for buck, and you could get a return on investment if you decide it's not your thing. Plus, if you spend
you don't have to change tires, you don't have to change oil, you don't have to pay registration, you don't have to pay U-Haul for a trailer.
Yep,
it's just there. And honestly, I would say there's a lot of media that crosses over into it. Most media guys probably have a computer capable enough of running a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I have VR, like I just did the Oculus Quest 3, which is
you don't
crazy.
need the Oculus.
I'm trying to figuring it out. Like I think I still need to upgrade some other stuff, but like the clarity is just absurd. And there's better ones than that, but that was, you're talking $350 for that. It's awesome. It's like so much better. So get into it at levels. Like I had another setup before that. But if my kids are here, I have to play on my monitor because I have to be watching them in their place. So you don't always have to have the best equipment. You can just have a flat screen. I had like a random TV on here. So you can get in at different price points, but I would suggest a sim, not in regrets that I didn't have one for a long time, but in like the opportunity of like, come on over and just try it and see if it's what you want to try.
Okay. So then moving from that, we've been sim driving for a while and about a year, and we really like it. We need to look at a car. We need to actually buy a car. We want to do this in real life. Now, the 1,000 S13s never, ever going to be a thing again that we know and love.
They're going to run for $1,000.
Yeah, and you'll probably be able to see and have to Fred Flintstone it to be able to get to the starting line. There won't be a motor. It'll just be a bad day.
You won't get through tech, actually.
This is also true.
If there's tech.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say it, a 1990, an S13 from 1990 with a single jingle KAE is 35 years old as of today. And any 35-year-old car circa 2020 or 2005 when we were starting, you're talking about a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda or something along those lines. You need to start thinking in those terms of, yes, they were cool, they served a purpose, but I think technology's also kind of grown in a positive way to say, hey, a 2005 car is still 20 years old. So, and that's kind of cool too, because in the early 2000s, there's a lot of stuff coming not just from the Japanese side of things, but from the domestic manufacturers. That's also when like the Mustang started coming into drifting. The Gen 5 Camaros were becoming a thing. So you have offerings from both sides of the pond, as well as some of the German offerings. The BMWs are still really, really, really huge. $5,000 in your pocket right now in 2025. I want to be able to have you kind of spec out the first drift car ever. You don't have to spend the whole $5,000, but we're talking about just something you've been driving on a sim or you've been following drifting. You kind of, like you said, when you were talking to your buddies back in 05 when you were testing their cars out, you kind of knew a little bit about stuff and you were throwing some bolt-ons on it. Let's get back to that and walk me through. Give me 3 chassis that you would want to start with. 3 chassis.
For $5,000, the car can only be $5,000, or I have $5,000 to spend on a car.
Total. This is total.
Fuck.
Yeah. Now, I mean, again, you can travel. We're in kind of a bubble in this mid-Atlantic area of like inflated prices. I know there's a guy, Dave Roberts. I follow him on Facebook. He's selling $1,500 5-speed E46s all day long with titles. Run drive. I'm sorry. That's a stupid deal. You know, maybe
So
a little bit of panel.
My first pick would be a 350Z, just for that's gonna be new enough that it's gonna get you to register it, to drive it,
Okay.
to tell your parents you can get to school or your first job or whatever. And then you'll have like really good options for coilovers, or go get some stage wheels. Hopefully you have at least 4. But that car is gonna be damn good, like real talk. I don't know too much. I've had E46s. That would be probably second choice nowadays if I had like that $5,000. And if you can get a decent BRZ, because those chassis, they're good. They're not going to be bad. And the few I've driven at Drift Nirvana, they're like, all right, I get it. They're not going to be killing it, but you don't have to. They come with like a 15, 45, 17 on the back. That's plenty for the grip that they have, and then to upset that grip to get it to transfer, do like one simple handover on like the Washington skid pad or something. So they actually feel like a pretty solid car. So that would be the newest. So it would be 350Z, E46, and E46s have so many range of 323 to 328 to 330, and all the other numbers don't matter when you get to 330. But you're not.
Don't get a 318. Do not get a 318 Ti. Do not.
That's not. That'd be an
Regardless of E46,
don't
the
get a
318 is just. Please don't. It looks cool. Chelsea made it awesome, but just don't.
BRZ, honestly, yeah. FRS, BRZ, whatever.
Do you think you could find one?
Yeah.
For 5?
Yeah.
Run, drive, stick shift. Interesting.
I haven't looked. We're gonna stretch those and go to have ramen for another week to get 5,500.
Add into the non-existent budget of just money that we'll find.
Because you've already spent all your money on your sim.
This is true.
Because you realize this is what you want to do.
Interesting. All right, and then
have you never driven one?
No. I've driven one. A girl I dated had one, and they were fun. I just know that a couple of friends of mine drive them. They're LS swapped or they're turboed, and I see a limit with them. Like there's just a cap that they just can't do more than some of their peer cars of the same era. Especially with them being a newer chassis. I believe 2010, 2011 is like when they first started coming out. Maybe 2013. And now you're talking like 92 BMW. Now you're talking like S5 Mustang, LS3 Corvette, and
Okay.
so when you're talking
I'm
about the
thinking like what I actually see. So we have seen
Mm.
more Mustangs,
Mhm.
but I guess I don't know the price point of what those are. I'm just thinking if my pick would be 350Z 6 your ZFRS.
Solid
Because like they
choices.
need to have some like usage outside of drifting, honestly. Because that 5K, like if you're stretching it at 5K, like you're not going on dates or you're not putting kids in the back kind of thing.
No. So yeah, so that's the other thing too. Because of 3Z, there is no back seats. So if you do have kids, that kind of does shift to, you could do like a 2-door BMW or 2-door BRZ to be able to make it work. Sedan groupie, sedan lover boy over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
what about the Infiniti G? What about the G35 and the Coupe or the sedan versus the 3Z?
they're
With how
hard to find in
expensive-
like stick that aren't sideshowed it out or something. Like the amount of 350Zs I've bought are way. I've only had like one 6-speed like G35 sedan, excuse me. But like the G35s are like a little bit longer than a Z, so they actually do feel a lot different in drift. They're
Mhm.
not as ideal, but like your sedan, like what's the actual wheelbase on that compared to a Z?
Longer. Definitely longer. But one thing I did notice that if you look at it, if we strip down it, even with the cage, my sedan weighs less than a coupe for G35. So the internal bracing and framework, inner fender wells, a lot of the structural stuff is a lot beefier on the coupes versus the sedans. I mean, you really start stripping that thing down, and it is just a rolling, sunroof delete. Although, I mean, this is the comp car stuff is different, but yeah, I also like the longer wheelbase just because I like to hang it out a lot more. I mean, it's just more fun for me to be able to get big flicks and being able to go out with that shorter wheelbase stuff, like my FDRX7. Like there is no footage, footage anywhere of me doing big hangouts on any kind of angle. It doesn't, and because it would over rotate every time. It was.
I feel you.
Yeah, if you've never driven, I mean, I know you've driven the FD and stuff, but they're just maybe a little bit bigger than a Miata.
Wheelbase is a wild thing to think about, and the RX-8 was 113 or something, and that's long.
Yeah. Also, the track on that car with the suspension.
Modern cars are big.
Yeah,
modern cars are big. Old cars, like an S15 next to an S550, is laughable. How big a Mustang is.
Now, for some of you guys that don't know what we're talking about, the wheelbase is from center point of the hub, and that's the distance in between there. So you can measure that on any car, and then the track width is the actual physical width from the outside of each rim to the outside of each rim measured across. A lot of times you'll see drift cars. I know I have them. I've done it before. Put spacers on the front of their car to be able to increase the track width for a little bit more predictability and control. Just because a narrower track width, like an NA Miata, like your Miata versus the RX-8, there was probably a 1.5 difference.
Like it fit inside the body, not fit inside the wheels. Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to predictability, there's only so much that limits of the physical chassis can do. So that is one thing to contemplate when you're talking about setting a car up is, I don't know. I mean, don't think you're going to be going out there with 90 degrees of steering angle and be able to huck everything at 70 miles an hour.
Like bringing the mechanical aspect, like I've been working on cars since high school, master ASE certified, been through tech programs and stuff. Like if you look at almost every manufacturer, the front wheels are wider than the rear for tracking. So like going down the highway, if your rears are bigger, it's going to make your front end understeer. If you ever try to drift a dually or try to drive a dually sprinted, you're just going to be pushing your front end because the width of your rear, you don't have that like turn in capability because your rears are like, well, but I'm back here. So like a little pro tip, if you're like on a bank track and you have your 30 mil spacers out back, your eBay spacers, take out your outside one if you're going left, like at Langley, I'd take off my right side spacer and the car will stay higher because your left rear is more so driving it up and your right rear is narrow. So it doesn't have that stability. So you're like taking your slip out of your car. So little fact.
Well, you see that on the asphalt track cars, the ones that do the circle stuff. Like the right rear either has a larger tire,
like offset.
Spaced out. Yeah, exactly. Like that, you'll look at it and the actual physical tire locations don't always line up, especially in the front when it comes to steering.
They'll
And
have
then
like different pickup points.
yeah, and then you start, the karting terms, like when you're talking about jacking and stuff like that. That's something that drifting we started to be able to almost the reverse jacking you see in go-karting when you want to pick up that rear tire to be able to have that ability to push through the corner. Yeah.
Crazy. There's a lot of that'd be like the competitive side of how do you get an advantage, and it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, that was ASD's fault, bringing in all this like movement to drifting.
Well, I shout out to Josiah at FDF. I mean, he's doing a lot of those technical pieces to be able to teach Ackerman, to be able to teach, camber and all that kind of stuff, and really dumb it down to where put these things in your toolbox, and when you're making some adjustments, make it on the tracker piece instead of messing with the car and then have to drive it. And
just the visual understanding of like what he's doing with Ackerman, or in like I agreed to work with Chelsea in 2013 to move forward in 2014, knowing we were going to drive, we're just like getting our shit together. And because of that, like, I'll hook you up with BCs. Like, let's get BCs on that RX-8. Sure, no problem. So like knowing what BC needed to get a pro drift car shock, he was like, what's the motion ratio? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And he was like, take a screwdriver or take a pry bar, and how much can you pull or push on it? And like Josiah just dropped that info on like what motion ratio is, and I was like, this was Chelsea in 2013. Like, come on, let's go. So it's nuts what to think about, but we had to make the lock kit. Like Wisefab wasn't around to build that lock kit on that car, so that's how long ago drifting was. Like they had just came out with that E30 kit. Mm-hmm. That's how long ago that was.
Well, even the stuff PBM's been doing, because before Wisefab really kind of pushed into the States, PBM was like the gatekeeper of angle, was the gatekeeper of like drop knuckle stuff, and going through different variations. Then GK Tech followed suit, and then Wisefab FDF. So your SLR is obviously another really great company. Now everyone and their mother makes an angle kit for this and that, and welds a couple of arms and calls it an angle kit. But there is something to be said about spending $2,500 on a front end kit that the R&D has been years and years and years in the CAD. And again, that's why I run FDF on all my kind of stuff, because Josiah not only ran it when he was a pro driver, but he also was a prospect, but he's able to explain the why. And I think from that fabricator,
big. He's not like keeping any secrets. He's like telling everything because he's going to do it his way. And if someone's going to copy him, I don't know if he calls him. I don't know. Can he sue from Canada, or he's going to be like, hey, fuck you? That's fine too. But is that going to, he's putting out stuff that's going to drive content to himself and his product. And he literally put out a video where he just said that's why he does it. He's going to do it anyway, so we might as well record it and put it out.
Yeah, like when it, like the C6 rear grip kit, like he did the pro kit on his car. They took the Drift Masters. I know Tommy TLO's got a bunch of stuff going on his C. I mean, I think they're Canadians. They live next door to each other. So I mean, they have
Canada's freaking huge though.
Yeah, I know. It's like 6 Texases. Like, I mean, as far, and then you get like the winter. It's like Russia, Antarctica, that whole portion, or Arctic Circle. But yeah. So I mean, the gatekeeping is no longer there. I think a lot of the companies like circa 2013, 2014 were very, very keen to keep the chips in their corner just because they wanted that competitive advantage. And now, I mean, you've got people sharing suspension specs all over the place, power to weight ratios, corner balancing is now becoming more and more of a thing with drift cars, whereas...
Where are you placing your weight? Yeah, yes. Where are you putting your fuel cell? I don't know, in the back. No, because then you're going to be like, when I'm on throttle and I don't get fuel slosh anymore on my Z, but I'm losing the left front when I go around a turn, and you're like, your diaper's full. Literally, your diaper's full, and you can't steer now. So like, move that weight inside your pendulum, so it's like pushing on your axle, not behind. Like,
or full tank versus like almost empty tank. You know, the weight of a gallon of gasoline. You've got 15-gallon fuel cell. You burn 10 gallons. You're moving that center of weight.
Yeah, we even knew that on the RX-8, and that was before like Radium had like their 6-gallon cells and stuff. We had to get like a 10-gallon ATI, and my big thing was like the setup. If I can give feedback, it's like, let's not waste space. So that thing had a 10-gallon ATI that we sunk into where the right rear seat was, but then we had to cover it, and we had like the whole right rear window was like the fuel fill area.
Mm-hmm.
because in FD you can't have anything fluid-wise around you. So we had like a whole sheet metal thing. So people were like, "What's that big thing?" It's like, well, we couldn't get a small fuel cell, so it's that. But the balance was sick. Like it offset me, so it was right here, and it made sense. So that was 12 years ago. Let's go.
Yeah, this is before like surge tanks were popular and triple fuel pumps, and
We had two Aeromotive 3 back then or something in black boxes, like ATI black boxes. So it looked like
Yeah.
a mousetrap or like an improved racing baffle, and they were on both each corner because like the Holley Hydromat wasn't a thing back then. Like just crazy stuff. And that was our
when
first
that
time
was
running ethanol. Just insane.
yeah. So that was what 2014. Two 340 fuel pumps on a Magnuson supercharged LQ9, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a 6-liter iron block, and it made like 60 horsepower or 60 torque at 3,200, like when the dyno started. And then it crossed over to like 90 horsepower at 7,200 or something. It
And
was
back
so
then, dude. But back then, you were like, I think top 3 or top 5 in horsepower in Pro 2.
It was
with that
yeah,
with that setup.
because Stoneback was, I think he was squeezing a little bit of nitrous,
Mm-hmm.
but he had like a really nice dry sump LS. Who else? J-Lo was driving his 13B car.
Mm-hmm.
FC. Brandon Whitnick, he was day S13.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Brockett was there in his RV car. He blew up every round, but he was there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We were just thinking, why don't we just have like a decent rotating assembly and then get the support for Magnuson and do their charger? They wanted to give us like the jack shaft style charger, but we knew the IATs were going to be hotter on those, and drifting's only hotter. So we had to like buy 2300s that they had just released for the C6s, and we like paid the difference or something.
Well, limiting that jack shaft is huge when it comes to
friction,
heat, just everything having to do. Yeah,
more belts to fly off. Yeah,
you did. I don't think you had belt issues versus what some people in the superchargers have been having the last 2-3 years.
Yeah. We had, I can't remember if, I don't even know if LSX Concepts was like a thing back then, but we had some sort of drive, and I want to say we used Camaro accessories instead of Corvette accessories for the belt offset, so we could do a separate belt drive on a TED rib with the greenback belt. That's like the belt you need on a supercharger. The Gates greenback. Yeah. They're expensive, but they were worth it.
But yeah, I mean, again, that was kind of showcasing to where seed technology is coming from just 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
I would want to try like the V3 Vortec, like what Matt Field and Odie are doing, like to feel a supercharger that has like a turbo power to it.
Yeah.
But even like, Doug Lanciano's, he's got the 6 on his S-Fiend. And it's just like, when do you want to spin? Now? When you want to spin later, we'll spin them too. Like, it doesn't give a heck. And I haven't even driven his new setup, but that thing makes gobs of torque and gobs of power, and it's in a car that's like 800 pounds lighter than what my RX-8 was. So
yeah,
supercharged stuff's crazy too.
Versus you've got the RTR cars, and for those of you who aren't familiar, they have NASCAR V8s in them. I believe they're Yates motors and
RY45s.
RY45s, so they're Roush Yates. So they're, I believe, 880 or 900 NA with a 300 shot.
I heard it was a 400. I heard it was a 400.
Just to think, so they had NA more power than your supercharged LQ9 had, and then they're throwing
$1 motor.
Easy okay. on a good day.
You said RTR.
yeah. It should just be substituted out with just dollar bill.
Championship. Yeah.
You can't argue with results. That's a
no.
Fact. But so yeah, talking about James Dean and all the great things he was doing, we could probably talk about James for it's a whole podcast.
Could be about talking about him.
Yeah. No, he's a phenomenal driver. But James is actually one of the ones that I liked it because he came from rallying. Him and his brother did a lot of rally stuff back in Ireland, and then grew into drifting. Have you ever tried any other forms of motorsport other than drifting that you think may have helped in your drift career or drift progression?
I did like drag racing enough to know that I didn't want to do it.
Now, is this like drag racing in Mexico, or is this at a track? Or
yeah, I drag raced at Old Dominion before I drifted there, and that's cool. But other than that, doing the training the evasive training at Summit Point to be an instructor. Like we've all had to go through it. So the Crown Vics, if you've ever been to Summit Point, they're just like Crown Vics, right? But like honestly, they call them their $1 million cars because the amount of training that they've taught in them, the amount of hours that they've earned that corporation, the amount of hours, like the durability of a Crown Vic is like unmatched. And they will make a bad driver bad and a good driver good. And that is so crazy to think. And you're like, what does that mean? And I couldn't believe like the shit you could do in those things. And they're like, yeah, but give me more. And you have to listen to what the car is doing. So driving in a grip manner, I don't have like time saying I'm faster than somebody, but like car control and grip racing is real. But I also love stepping past that. So wheel to wheel, no, but understanding car control, I do have that down pretty good. And most road racers would agree. Those fucking drifters, I don't know how they do it. But we could probably get in and turn a lap pretty close to what they're doing, honestly.
No, I'd agree. I mean, Ryan Downey, we've talked about it a couple times. I mean, he does NASA SCCA stuff in Datsuns. A couple other, I know he does a Miata circuit as well, I think, or 24-hour. He does an endurance.
Yeah, he does. He has a lot of Datsun stuff, and also Volkswagens, like some sort of like Jetta. Or something. He wants me to do that too. So at Dominion, actually.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, being able to see. I mean, he is a phenomenal driver, and you can see a lot of the car control stuff and just how he's wheeling and just being able, as far as like reading a track and setup and stuff. And there's a lot that does transfer over. So just again, guys that go from grip racing into drifting, there's a learning curve, but I agree. I think drifters could jump into a grip car, a NASA SCCA, and be a little bit more formidable than the other way around.
I rode with a group. I think it was the Chaos Fab or Chaos Motorsports guys at Hyperfest, and I got in some Jeep with some guy, and he's like, "Oh, are you a wheeler?" And I was like, "No, I'm like a drifter." And he's like, "Oh, what you guys do is crazy. Let me show you what we do." And 2 hours later, we come out of the woods, and I was like, "All right, that was fucking crazy. Like, I owe you a ride now. Like, hey, come find me next year." But it is nuts because there is crossover of appreciation of what the drifters are doing or the road racers are doing. It's just the opportunity to get into that seat or something. So, would I want to do more? Yeah. Timing? I don't know. Where's the opportunity?
TBD, to be determined.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a new year, and there's definitely opportunities afold. But with that, Dan, I really want to appreciate your time. I know Drift Dad is super busy, and again, thank you so much for being here and chatting about stuff with me. And hopefully, if there's one piece you could take away from this, ladies and gentlemen, is that you see an individual who went across the gamut from 20 years of driving, still coming back to being able to be an instructor at your local track and keeping you on the right paths. Again, shout out to the sponsors, Stage Wheels, NA.com, NovaUS.com for tires, and of course, Toolworks. Dan, I will see you at Drift Nirvana, and I'll look out for the blue sweatshirt. And again, sir,
come see me. You can walk with Chris if you want to approach him first, but I'll be there. I'll be at Drift Appalachia. I'll be at Hyperfest. I'll be at US Drift at RIR or VMP if they're having events there this year. I try to go everywhere. I can't always go everywhere, but who knows what this podcast or what these clips will come out to be. But thank you for your time, and this was fun. Who knows what's next with me and my new setup that you helped me rig. So thanks a lot, Chris.
Are there any sponsors you want to plug since you got a little time?
Let me get my wallet out.
My goodness.
No. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Stage. I'm a big fan of Enzo Car Care products right now, and we're going to do more opportunities with doing stuff. OG Racing has made sure my head stays attached to my neck with all my expert driving I've been doing. So I need to get some more Kenda tires. The Zeknovas I need to try, but I've been dead set with the Kenda. You could probably cut that part out. But
hey, this is all about you. But there may or may not be a pair of Zeknovas that roll onto your trailer and be like, "Oh man, so crazy."
Cool. No, I just want to do more drifting. If you want to be a part of drifting, holler at me. We'll do some more drifting.
And how can we find you on social media, Dan?
I'm Dan Spore on just about everything. So bump those numbers up. Give me a like, comment, subscribe. I'll try to do more. This was maybe the first step of me doing more.
Hashtag road to 10,000.
Whatever.
Road to 10K subs.
Yeah, I guess when it gets like 10, then I can do 10.1. Whatever. Who knows? So, no, this is fun. Thanks for having me, man.
Not a problem, guys. I am Steven on Instagram, Chris DeBoard on Facebook, and you guys have just watched the Dirt Drop podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share as well. We'd love to be able to see you guys on the next episode. Stay tuned for the next Dirt Drop. Peace, everybody.